Nature has always been the greatest artist. Before we learned to paint, to sculpt, or even to build, we were surrounded by natural forms, organic lines, flowing textures, subtle patterns that emerged without effort. Nature doesn't try to be beautiful. It simply is. And that's exactly what makes it such an enduring source of inspiration, especially in the world of carved wood art. There's something deeply poetic about taking a material that once lived as a tree and then shaping it, carving it, into a new life form that still honors its origins. Nature-inspired carved wood art isn't about control or domination. It's about collaboration. About working with the grain, following the flow, respecting the natural integrity of the wood, while gently coaxing out forms that reflect the world it came from. Artists who create this kind of work aren't just sculptors, they're listeners. They look at a piece of wood and see not just what it is, but what it wants to be. A knot in the grain might become the eye of an owl. A natural curve might suggest a leaf, a wave, a wing. No two pieces are ever the same, and that's exactly the point. The imperfections in the wood are part of the story. The art isn't imposed onto the wood, it emerges from it. Nature-inspired wood carving often pulls directly from botanical and organic motifs. Leaves, branches, flowers, tree bark, flowing water. Some pieces are highly detailed. Every vein in a leaf, every fold in a petal, every ripple in a wave painstakingly carved into the surface. Others are more abstract, capturing the spirit of nature rather than its literal form. A swirl that suggests wind. A curve that evokes a mountain range. A cluster of forms that feels like a forest without depicting a single tree. And then there's the tactile experience. You don't just look at carved wood, you feel it. The way the surface dips and rises under your fingertips. The contrast between the smooth sanded areas and the rougher, more natural zones. There's a sensory richness in carved wood that simply can't be replicated in other materials. It invites touch, grounds you. It brings you back into your body, back into the present moment. One of the most compelling aspects of nature-inspired carving is the way it blurs the line between art and function. A wooden bowl might be carved with waves that spiral inward like a whirlpool. A chair might have armrests that mimic tree limbs. A mirror frame might be surrounded by hand-carved vines, wrapping and twisting like they're still growing. These pieces serve a purpose, but they also carry a presence. They bring the wild indoors in a way that feels intentional, elegant, and alive. Many artists who create this kind of work spend just as much time outside as they do in the studio. They observe the way light filters through leaves, the way bark flakes off in layers, the way driftwood is worn by water and wind. These details stay with them. They become part of the creative process. So when they pick up their carving tools, they're not just shaping wood, they're recalling moments in nature. A walk through the forest, a quiet moment by a stream, a memory of sunlight on rock. There's also a spiritual element in this kind of art. Not necessarily religious but reverent. Carving wood with inspiration from nature feels like a ritual, like a conversation with something bigger. You're not just making an object, you're honoring a cycle. The tree grows. The tree is harvested. The wood is shaped. And then, through carving, it becomes something more. Something that still speaks of forests and roots and rain, even as it hangs on a gallery wall or sits in a quiet home. Different types of wood offer different voices in this dialogue. Soft woods like basswood or pine allow for fine detail and gentle curves. Hardwoods like walnut or cherry offer rich color and a deep, satisfying density. Driftwood, with its weathered textures and irregular shapes, brings a wild, unpredictable energy. Some artists choose their wood carefully. Others let chance decide, picking up fallen branches, repurposing scraps, working with what nature provides in the moment. Each choice carries its own intention. Each piece of wood brings its own story. Texture plays a huge role in nature-inspired carving. Some works are smooth and polished, reflecting light like water. Others are rough-hewn, jagged, cracked. The kind of surfaces you find on canyon walls or ancient trees. These textures don't just add visual interest. They carry meaning. They speak of time, of growth, of erosion. They remind us that beauty doesn't always come from perfection. Sometimes it comes from weathering, from surviving. Color, too, becomes part of the experience. Some artists leave the wood completely natural, letting the color of the grain speak for itself. Others use stains or finishes to bring out contrast, to emphasize certain lines or shadows. In some cases, the wood is burned or charred to create depth. This isn't damage, it's transformation. It adds a layer of storytelling. The fire changes the surface. It reveals something new. Scale is another powerful tool. A small handheld carving might feel intimate, like a secret. A large wall piece, carved to resemble a forest canopy or a crashing wave, becomes immersive. It surrounds you. It shifts the atmosphere of the room. You're no longer just looking at art, you're inside it. You're part of it. That's the power of nature when it's translated through carving. It doesn't just sit on the wall. It breathes. Some artists push the form even further by combining carved wood with other natural materials: stone, bone, shell, feathers. These combinations amplify the connection to the earth. They create pieces that feel like artifacts from another world, or perhaps from an older version of this one. They suggest stories we haven't yet heard, myths we've forgotten, languages we used to speak. And what's remarkable is that this kind of art fits just as comfortably in a rustic cabin as it does in a modern home. A carved wood panel with flowing leaf patterns can soften a minimalist space. A sculpture that evokes a weathered tree trunk can bring texture and history into a sleek, contemporary room. Nature-inspired carving is adaptable because nature itself is adaptable. It's about harmony, not competition. It doesn't need to dominate a space, it enhances it. At a time when many people feel disconnected from the natural world, carved wood art serves as a kind of reconnection. It brings reminders of the forest, the ocean, the mountains into our everyday lives. It encourages us to pause, to observe, to remember that we're not separate from nature, we're part of it. The forms may be abstract, the lines stylized, but the feeling is real. The memory is real. And perhaps that's the greatest gift of nature-inspired carved wood art. It doesn't just decorate a space, it deepens it. It adds presence. It adds meaning. It reminds us that art isn't just about what we see, it's about what we feel, what we remember, what we return to again and again. In a fast-moving world, this kind of work asks us to slow down, to look closely, to trace the curve of a carved petal, to follow the twist of a vine, to feel the echo of wind and rain and sun, all held within the grain of the wood. It's not just craft, it's communion. And long after we walk away, long after the carving is hung or placed or passed down, we carry a little of that quiet beauty with us. A reminder, carved in wood, that the natural world is not something distant or separate, but something we hold, something we live with, something we are. Nature-inspired carved wood art is more than craftsmanship. It's a quiet homage to the natural world. It draws from the textures, lines, and rhythms we see around us every day: the ripple of water, the branching of trees, the flow of wind across the land. Each carved detail echoes a deeper connection to something primal, something older than us. And when that is translated into wood, the result is more than art. It becomes a living reminder of the world we're a part of. This kind of art doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't need to. It invites presence. A closer look. The patterns might be delicate like veins in a leaf, or bold and rough like a weathered tree trunk. But in either case, the emotion is the same: calm, grounded, connected. It's the kind of art that doesn't just hang on a wall, it becomes part of the space. It brings breath and warmth into a room the way a window looking out at a forest might. And it's not just about visual beauty, it's about feel. Carved wood holds texture. You can run your fingers across the ridges and valleys, and it feels like touching the earth. It's tactile, real. There's nothing artificial about it. It doesn't try to mimic nature. It is nature shaped and guided by human hands. And that meeting point, where natural material meets intentional design, is where the magic happens. Each piece tells its own story. Some are literal, like carved leaves, animals, or landscapes. Others are more abstract, suggesting movement, seasons, or elements through shape and form. But all of them are rooted in the same language, the quiet complexity of nature. No straight lines. No perfect symmetry. Just flow, growth, and organic harmony. And the process itself, carving wood by hand, working with the grain instead of against it, is a practice in patience and respect. Artists who create these pieces aren't just crafting, they're listening. Listening to what the wood wants to become. Where it bends, where it cracks, where the grain wants to speak. It's a slow process, but that slowness is what gives the art its soul. What's special is how seamlessly these works fit into our homes and lives. In a world filled with fast design, digital images, and disposable decor, nature-inspired wood art stands apart. It has weight. It has presence. It reminds us to pause, to breathe, to remember that there's more beauty in imperfection than perfection, more meaning in the hand-carved than the mass-produced. Whether you place a carved wooden panel above a mantel, mount a flowing wall piece in an entryway, or simply set a small sculpture by a window, it will shift the mood of the space. It becomes more than decor, it becomes a moment of reflection, a visual anchor, a reminder that the natural world isn't something out there, it's something we carry with us even indoors. So in the end, nature-inspired carved wood art isn't just about aesthetics. It's about presence, connection, stillness. It speaks in shapes and textures, in lines drawn not with ink, but with the tools of time and care. It brings the outside in, but more importantly, it brings us back to ourselves. Back to what's real, what's lasting, what matters. Because when we bring nature into our spaces, not in the form of imitation but through honest, crafted wood, we're not just decorating. We're honoring, remembering, rooting ourselves in something deeper. And that's what makes it powerful. Not just beautiful but meaningful.